Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome back to WARNO. Today we're looking at the 79th Guards Tanks Division from the USSR. They are all about the armor, but you're gonna need a good amount of support in order to make that work. Let's have a look at the deck. As with the US Armor deck, you do not find all of your command units in the Logi tab. Not anymore. We have the BRDM-2U, the MI-8, and the BMP-1K3. But in Infantry, you can find, don't laugh, motostrelki command infantry, as well as tanks. The T-80 UK and the T-80 BVK are both command units. Anyway, let's go over the units and let's see what they have. You got your basic MTLB Snab, which is a resupplier. Carries a mere 500 points of supplies. It's really not that many. It is enough to keep, for example, an infantry squad going, and they are only 20 points. So I suppose that is good enough. If you need more, you're going to have to go with the Ural for 40 points, carrying 1100 supplies. So double the price, but you get 10% more. The BRDM-2U, the MI-8, they're really not that impressive. I mean, they got a little bit of armor. The BMP is most heavily armored command unit in the infantry, in the Logi tab, with just 3 frontal armor. And it can defend itself. Although if you're going to have to use a 2A28 in order to defend your command unit, then something has probably gone quite badly wrong. Infantry, not a lot of options. You can pick either motostrelki or saperi. You can also get the UAZ-469, so let's start with that. Why is it in here? Well, mostly because it's dealing with enemy infantry. It has a grenade launcher, and since WARNO does not have a vehicle tab, this is what we're getting instead. You're going to get the anti-infantry in the infantry tab and the anti-tank in the anti-tank tab. In the tank tab. So, the UAZ-469 with an AGS grenade launcher. Quite a nice weapon system. I found the accuracy a bit lacking, especially at low veterancy. It's going to be 3 or 4%. I mean, it's a grenade launcher. It doesn't have to hit squarely on the target to still be effective. Mobility, pretty good. 63 kilometer off-road, 108 on-road. Then the motostrelki command. Believe it or not, this command can fight back against the tank. It has an RPG-22, which does a mere 13 pen, similar to the Law. It is not very good, but if, for some reason, somebody is able to get a command or a tank right next to your command, this could be a way of getting rid of it. You'll have to get extremely lucky and potentially get a side shot, but then the RPG-22 will actually work. On to the regular line infantry. You got a couple of variants here. You got the motostrelki, and you got the motostrelki metis. Now, if you compare these side by side, you can see that they're pretty similar. You got the motostrelki base, which have an RPG-7 VR, which again is similar to the Law, 13 AP. If you need something with bigger punch and bigger range, you're going to have to go with the metis, which is also why they are more expensive. You're paying 40 points for the base, 55 for the metis. Metis at 26 pen hits really hard. It hits a lot harder than the Dragon over on the US side. And it is most likely going to do either a one-shot on a tank, especially if you get a side shot, of course, or it's going to cause a lot of damage. When it comes to the motostrelki, you got the BMP here, and you got the BTR-60 here. So you have 2 different transport options. And for these guys, you cannot... you can change it. You can either get the BMP-1 or the BMP-2. When it comes to these vehicles, let me pull up the vehicle itself. The BMP-1P comes with the 2A28. It's the, let's say, the more cannon variant. It has 12 pen. It has a decent amount of range, but if you're dealing with infantry, this is really not the weapon that you want. If you're dealing with infantry, you want this. There we go. The BMP-2 with a 2A42 autocannon. It also has a machine gun, and it has the Conqueror's M. That missile is vastly better than what you get on the BMP-1. Come on, let me add this to the battle group, please. Thank you. The BMP-1P has the older Malyutka. 15 AP, 2650 range. I personally would pick the BMP-2 because it seems to be a better all-round vehicle for the same price. It's even got more armor. 4 frontal, 2 side. I don't really see a benefit to the BMP-1P. Not yet, but then again, these stats are subject to change and might change by the time that you're actually playing the game. We've got a saperi command unit. Again, armed with an RPG. Don't expect great miracles of them. They have 8 rounds, however. Could be changing this number. I don't know why a Sapri team, especially a command Sapri team, would be carrying 8 of these. But then again, it is nice to have if you're dealing with an armored or vehicle assault coming your way. Base Sapri, the counterpart to the US engineers, armed with satchel charges, can clear out a building very, very quickly. Also armed with a medium machine gun, but this is not a CQC weapon and cannot be used in the same block as the other infantry unit. And then we have the RPO, which is the the anti-infantry napalm weapon. It is an incendiary rocket launcher, causes napalm. It can be fired on the move, although I kind of doubt the efficacy of that. I would much prefer to keep these guys stable and then use the RPO at, let's say, a block, maybe 2 blocks distance. For transports, you got the UAZ or the BTR, and for the base Sapri, you got the GAZ-66 or the BTR. Artillery. Not a lot here. We got the Gvozdika, Akatsiya, and the Grad. Now, these guys come with a lot of ammunition, because seemingly vehicles have their own ammunition supply built in and don't need a fob, because fobs don't exist in this game. What we have over here is the Grad with 40 rockets. That's a lot of rockets. It is capable of hitting targets at 17 kilometers, and in case you're wondering, yes, these things do indeed go through hills, much in the same way that other units do in Wargame. It's not like hills block a rocket, they just go right through and explode where they should. That is something that apparently is baked into the engine that the game is running on, and is not something that can be adjusted. Damage is okay, rate of fire is pretty damn good, and that is at veteran if you're going to go 1... normally this changes, rate of fire. Because here we got a rate of fire of plus 15%, but I'm not seeing it translate into the unit card, where normally it does. What else do we have? We got the Gvozdika. This one can be had at 4 units at veteran, or a couple at elite. You only get 2 of them. They do get a better accuracy, which, considering this weapon, well, I don't even know what the base accuracy of this gun is. It doesn't say how much dispersion you have, as opposed to Wargame, where it says exactly how much dispersion you're likely to face. You got the Gvozdika and the counterpart, the Akatsiya, or Akatsiya. I'm still not sure where to put the pronunciation on that. This one is the similar howitzer, but has better range. It is at 152 versus the Gvozdika's 122, and therefore it will likely do more damage. You're sacrificing some rate of fire in order to make that work, though. Now then, onto the armor. We are a battle group centered around armor. Break out your wallets, because the T-80 UK is the best, and, well, not necessarily the best, but it is the most expensive tank that you can get. It is 380 points, and it is a pretty damn well-rounded combat unit. You got 20 pen, 20 frontal armor, you got the reflex missile out to 2,825 meter range, and it fires 6 of those. They can not be fired on the move, sadly, but even if you come across something that has more than 22 units of armor, you will still do some damage because it is high explosive anti-tank. It'll always do some damage. Now, if you compare that to the T-80U, the T-80 UK is basically just the beefed up version as a command unit. That's what you're paying the extra 100 points for. The rest of the stats are exactly similar. You cannot upvet the T-80 UK, but you can do that with the T-80U. In that case, you're going to get just 1 tank per card, but they will have a very high accuracy at 90. It's not as good as what I saw previous on the US Armored Division, but 90% accuracy is still really, really deadly. You got a machine gun. Currently, it carries 525 rounds of ammunition. I think that's a bit low for a heavy machine gun, and I believe that the ammunition stats are still going to change. If you think that a T-80U is potentially a bit too expensive, you can drop down to the T-64BV. If I compare these side by side, you can see that the BV sacrifices a bit of frontal armor, side armor. It does get more rear armor for some reason or another. The pen is still as good, although the T-80U has 1 higher rate of fire and travels 4 kilometers faster when going off-road, but a whopping, what was that? Sorry, that's almost 30. It's 29 kilometers faster on roads. So it's no longer that tracked vehicles all have the same speed. It also carries the Agona HGM, which does similar amounts of damage, but it has less range. And if you... well, actually, I cannot upvet these, so I cannot get more accuracy on the Agona. Then we got the T-80BV. Let me contrast these again. You got the T-80BV at slightly less armor. Pen is favorable for the BV. This thing is still very much capable of holding its own with 18 pen, and it carries the Cobra missile if you want to do a bit of damage at range against armored units. The T-80BVK is, again, the 100-pound more expensive command version of the BV. The T-80B, another step down from the T-64BV. You have the Cobra, and you have your main gun, but it only does 16 pen. It's not necessarily bad, because you get a 160-point price tag, which means that you can almost get 2 T-80Bs for the price of 1 T-80U. It means that you're more likely to have more presence in the field, potentially more control over the map that way, or the ability to get side shots. Now, if all of this firepower is uninteresting, you also have the BRDM-2 Conkers, which does 20 AP damage at 2650 meter range. That's the Wargame habit creeping in there. Very nice accuracy there, 62%, and you can boost that even greater to 75% at Elite, but you only get 3 of them. Considering the amount of damage that they can do, especially with the side shot, I think 30 points is a steal, and I would expect this to go up to 40, 50, 60 points. So, what is going to spot for your tanks? The Mi-8K as a recon helicopter. Exceptional optics, but completely unarmed. Decent speed. I would suggest that you either do a flyover of an area that you're going to scout out, or that you have a look from a distance. Hover over a tree line, pop out over a tree line, and then change altitude again, and that way quickly survey what the enemy is up to, and keep this thing alive, because they are expensive at 80 points. Also, at Elite, you don't get a whole lot of them, but if you downvet them, you're going to get 8. Sorry, 6, not 8. Then we have the Spetsnaz GRU. The Special Forces Group. Exceptional optics, exceptional stealth. Very, very nice units. They carry a submachine gun. The other submachine gun, so this is the Vintores, this is the AS Val, and we got the RPG-27. Sadly, not a very good anti-tank weapon. When I'm thinking Spetsnaz GRU, I'm immediately thinking back to Wargame and that they had a much better anti-tank weapon. But we'll just have to make this work and hope that with that exceptional stealth you can get a side shot. BRM-1K. Exceptional optics, mediocre stealth. It has your 2A28 gun, so it's not that good at shooting stuff. I would much rather have these things as passive spotters. Potentially at Elite. And then just tell them to hold their fire until you get a nice side shot, and then they strike and deal 12 damage. With a pretty damn good accuracy of 52%. Razvedka, standard reconnaissance squad, just 4 guys. It's a really small team, and they do get an anti-tank weapon, you got a light support weapon and assault rifle, but considering the strength of only 4 guys, I would really not recommend that you take these into the fight. It's not that likely to work out well. And then, something I don't quite get, you got the Razvedka base, and you got the Razvedka heavy. The Razvedka base, lacking another name, have an RPG-22, they got an RPK-74 and an AK-74 times 3. Okay, these have 6 AK-74s and 1 RPK-74, but no anti-tank weapon. They seem, with their 7-man strength and a slightly lower price tag, to be more oriented towards fighting, whereas the Razvedka are potentially more passive spotters. And then finally, for a more active scouting role, you got the BRDM-2. Machine gun on it. You can get 3 at Elite or 9 at lower veterancy. I don't believe it's going to really do anything for spotting, as it does do in Wargame Red Dragon, if you change them from lower to higher veterancy. It will make them more accurate, it will make them fire faster, it will make them more stress resistant, but it will not allow them to spot targets faster or identify them faster. Moving on to anti-air. We have the Igla teams, and these guys have the Igla missile, 6 of them, 2475 meter range or 1980 against planes, an okay amount of damage, accuracy at the 50% mark, but if you upvet them, it jumps to 75%. That means that these are potentially less numerous, but more accurate. Transports, only the UAZ 469. It does come with an interesting weapon. This 469. Sorry, no, it does not come with a weapon. Interesting, because it looks to me like there is a weapon mounted on that Jeep, but apparently that is not usable. Or it's an Igla? I'm not sure. Next up, the Strela 10M, as well as the OSA AKM. Pretty similar, but they do fire a different missile. The OSA is more geared towards dealing with aircraft. The Strela is more geared towards dealing with helicopters. Their ranges are pretty similar. You got the 2120 on aircraft on Strela, 2120 on helicopters for the OSA. But the OSA shines in taking down aircraft at 3.5 clicks out, and the Strela does 2650 against helicopters. The damage from the surface-to-air missile from the OSA is better though, 7 HE versus 5 on the Strela 10M. If you really need a plane dealt with, you get a Book M1. They are expensive at 170 points. And if you compare these to the, let's say the other plane hunter, if you will, it means that they have the exact same range, but more accuracy in the case of the Book. You get 62% accuracy versus the OSA AKM's 50%. You can, however, still buff this, but the Book... actually, no. Oh, I'm mistaken, I'm sorry. They have the exact same accuracy base, but the OSA can go as high as 75%, and the Book can't. The Book only does 50%. Although, once again, it seems that the UI is not interested in showing that. Normally this should be changing. Oh well. And finally, a 290 points, yeah, it's expensive, Tunguska. It carries the same weapons that you are used to, the 2830M, the 2838M, and the 9M311 surface-to-air missile. This one is radar guided, so turn it off if you see an enemy wild weasel coming in. As for the price, or availability rather, you have 3 of them at the lowest ranked, which is trained, or a couple more of them at veteran. And again, their chance to hit increases, but it seems that there is a bit of a bug with the UI because it doesn't translate. Helicopters. Not a lot of options. You're an armored deck. These are more of a support role. And sadly, you don't get an HEGM helo. You're going to have to find some other way to deal with tanks, such as your own tanks. But this thing can be a nice unit if you're dealing with infantry, because the Yak-B, as well as the S5M rocket pods, are deadly. I have seen these do quite a lot of damage against infantry. They also have the Igla V, which is an air-to-air missile, and it is nice to hunt down Apaches, Kiowa Warriors, Kiowas, and whatever other aircraft they have introduced by the time that the game is born developed. Finally, AirTab. This is where the Russians actually have quite a lot of options. You have 5 different variants of the Su-25. Now I'd like to draw your attention over here to trajectory. It says 17. It takes 17 seconds from the start when you call this in until this Su-25 reaches the map. This is a new thing in WARNO, and it means that you're going to have to be a bit more patient for some aircraft to come in. And it seems that the slower the aircraft, the slower or the longer the trajectory is. Armament, Su-25 with rockets. This one carries the air-to-ground rockets. They have a very nice suppressive effect, and if you're dealing with infantry guys, then this is going to be a nightmare for them. Need more explosive power? The Su-25HE has you covered with 6 500kg bombs, as well as 2 air-to-air missiles. The cluster bomber speaks for itself, cluster bombs and Vimpels again, napalm, and finally the HEGM. Keep in mind that the Su-25T, as you might know it from Wargame, with 16 Vickers missiles, is no longer with us, no longer exists. Instead of that, we have this thing with mere 2 missiles, the KH-29D. It does pack a nice amount of damage, 30 pen is enough to kill, or at least maim, most battle tanks. Ground target range is good. Damage is sufficient. I mean, it's pen, it's AP. It's not really going to go for HE. Again, it's going to take you 17 seconds to bring this thing in. Plan your attacks on enemy armor accordingly. If you need some ground target destroyed that maybe you don't want to call in the SU-25 for, because you might want more speed, for example, the SU-24 could do it. It carries a slightly greater payload than the SU-25. This one carries 6 500 kilogram bombs, and this one carries 8. It also has a greater speed and a slightly lower trajectory time, meaning it's going to be there faster. It also has the cluster option as well as the napalm option, and both of these carry a bit more ammo. Dealing with a plane, this one can help you out. The MiG-23ML and the MiG-23P. The MiG-23P is more of a hunter of enemy aircraft, more enemy planes. It has 2 longer range Wimpel missiles. Sorry, no, it doesn't have 2 longer range Wimpel missiles. It has 2 Wimpel missiles which have the same range as the infrared Wimpels. I'm not really sure what the selling point of these is, because the stats are so similar. The only thing is that it does 1 point more damage. It does, however, have 10% more ECM, which will help you keep it alive. And note the speed. 1,463 kilometers an hour means that your time to get to the map is 5 seconds. If you need to get to the map really quickly, aka in 1 second, then the MiG-31M is for you at 1,755 kilometers an hour. But these are only air-to-air missiles that I have had great difficulty targeting against helicopters. It says on the unit card that they can do it, but I doubt it. I really, really doubt it. I think it's a great plane hunter. Accuracy is good at 50%, and you carry 4 of these, so you should have at least 1 or 2 hit them. And that should be sufficient at 8 HE, potentially in combination with, say, an Igla team that might hit to bring down almost any plane. Maybe the Warthog is the exception, the A-10, because it is armored, and the rest of the planes are not. Alright, that concludes the overview of the 79th Guards Tanks Division. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the comment section. If you want to see more of my vids, then have a look at the playlist linked on the screen. And if you have any stats that are not lining up with your game, keep in mind that this video was recorded before the game was even released, and that way the stats might have changed or are currently being updated. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon for more videos.